2020 COVID-19 lockdown South Africa. 15th of April 2020, typical autumn day in Pietermaritzburg. Now I want to go directly into my book of desire this morning. And the reason I'm doing that is it's caused a lot of thinking to take place in me, and it's issues that are so open to question. And parents are talking about it, teachers, students, everybody. Now this is a delightful book. I don't know how many of you have read Adrian Mole. This book was published in 2009. Adrian Mole is a fictitious character created by Sue Townsend. The reason I like this book is it's written in a very diary kind of way, and you could go to any day, whatever day you please, and just read what Sue Townsend has written in this fictitious Adrian Mole's diary. And the one that I went to today, Adrian Mole was looking for a certain bit of advice. He's 39 years old, or late 30s, or whatever it is. And he is searching for advice. But the type of advice that he wants is found in the fiction area in the teenage section. Now, yes, I'm smiling about it because I've read this book, and it's always a source of amusement. It's a source of light-hearted reading for me. And it actually doesn't belong to me. It's my son's book. But be that as it may, I'd like to bring to this discussion this morning the reaction of different generations to the education system. Now, we talk about Gen X, baby boomers, etc. I'm going to take a few minutes to go through what each of these means. And today's video might just exceed the 10-minute mark. So, the generation and the birth years. Let's go to baby boomers. They were born 1944 to 1964. So after the baby boomers, we had the Gen X. Now the Gen X generation, born 1965 to 1979. Then we had the millennials, and they came along 1980 to 1994. After the millennials, we had the Gen Z, 1995 to 2015. And I'd just like to touch on something that Maya Angelou had said. Very briefly, she mentioned that the great leaders, if taught well, would come from the hip-hop generation. Something to think about. Now, if you look at these groups, they make up 15 to 20-year batches, right? And in each of these batches of groups, there have been different historical changes. And it's these historical changes that have determined how the groups react and the contributions they make to society. Society changes, history changes. Now, the new technology is normally adopted by the youngest in the group, and that goes up to the older generation. Now, added to this group, the last ones I mentioned stopped at 2015. Added to that, we have Generation Alpha. Generation Alpha, born entirely in the 21st century, and very often they are the children of the millennials. Now, with the Generation Alpha, let us assume that they are children of the millennials. Now, the millennials were the ones that experienced social networking a lot. So they are hopefully able to cope with the Generation Alpha child and the new technology and everything else. Now, to help me with explaining this and unpacking this morning, I'm going to refer to an article written by another ex-colleague of mine, Mr. Oscar Osden. Now, Mr. Oscar is an absolutely brilliant physicist. And besides being a brilliant physicist, he's a brilliant academic in his field as well. And I must say this from personal experience. being in his presence, whether it was in his presence as an educator or his presence as a leader, it was one of the most inspiring experiences. And I would like to share some research that Mr. Oscar has done. And he's very willingly shared this on his LinkedIn profile. So I'm deeply grateful for this article, and of course for still knowing him. So he says the coronavirus outbreak has actually reminded us of many things that we don't want to notice. So he goes on to referring to a number of things. But what really struck me here is when he says that many educational institutions in the world started to continue education with new online methods. Now, more than 420 million students worldwide are currently studying online. However, it's too early to, even measure the impact of COVID-19 on the education systems around the world. But there are signs that this may, and I say may, have a lasting impact on the learning trajectory. Now, the word trajectory, for those of you who are wondering what the term means, it's a term used to describe the path followed by an object moving under the action of given forces. So we have this object which we look at as education. And the given forces is technology during COVID-19. So it's a lot to think about, it's a lot to consider and to try and understand. We're educating interconnected citizens in this world. It's not just happening in one country. We're beginning to understand that the world is extremely small, and we can only work together if we plan to overcome this crisis that education is facing. It's no longer an individual problem. It is international. Now, when we're looking at online education, we have to be very, very mindful of the international impact it has as well. Because once you're online, you're open. There's no such thing as only a country will watch you. You actually open yourself for international criticism. And what you need to do is to be very mindful about adhering to the national rules, customs, and traditions of the country. And by this, I mean the traditions and rules, etc., that follow education, follow learning in your country. Now, looking ahead, some of the most important skills that employers will have to look for in their employees or create in their employees or try and train in their employees is going to be emotional intelligence, as well as creativity, communication, and collaboration. Nothing can happen without collaboration. The word teamwork is thrown around so often. We really need teamwork and collective power now. Now is the time. Project-based training, where you're able to assess a child on something that the child did. More student learning. Now let's look at Hong Kong. While Hong Kong is gone miles ahead with this kind of learning, we have other areas where WhatsApp is being used. All the same, it's still technology. One might differ from the other in the capacity, but you're still using technology. We look at a school in Nigeria. They've gone into using the reading method online, and they are actually using Google to do that. We look at Lebanon. In Lebanon, the students are taking videos of themselves doing physical exercise, and that's how their phys ed teachers are assessing them. Now, can you see what's happening here? The students are still being taught, but they are being assessed by the educator looking at a video. Now, you must be saying, okay, just looking at the video, so what is it? That student is learning to cut, to edit, to record. His skills with technology are expanding so much, and we're failing to see that. We're just looking at a child jumping and jiving in front of a camera or his mobile phone and recording it for the student. Are we failing to look at the further advantages of technology at this point in time with COVID-19? Another school is doing podcasts specifically on COVID-19, and that's being shared. So their up-to-date knowledge on COVID-19 is being shared with others, and in that way, they are ahead with all the information. So yes, we can use technology in the right way. It just depends on how it's used. In Mr. Oscar's words, the rapid spread of COVID-19 has shown how small and weak we are, but that we can find solutions if we can work together. This will be the biggest training that Z and Alpha generations will get from this pandemic. And we need to be in this together. We need to be in this now. I know that technology can be very daunting for some people, but there is nothing we can do. This is the way forward. And if anything, COVID-19 threw us in at the deep end. I would like to end with the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he says, each age, it is found, must write its own books, or rather, each generation for the next succeeding. I wish you well, and may God forever hold you in the palm of his hands.